Our Commission Chambers Workshop, and the time is 2:36. Need to have the City Clerk please take the roll.
Vice Mayor Hodges.
Here.
Commissioner Weinstein.
Here.
Commissioner Andrews.
Here.
Let the record show that Mayor Black and Commissioner Douther is not in attendance at this meeting.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Does anyone here tonight have any type of public comment to make? Okay, we'll close the public comment for now. The first thing on the discussion list is the legal representation by Weidner Law City Liens, and this will be taken by Mr. Brookes, please.
Sure. I think the city is pretty much aware of, and the commission is pretty much aware that we have a number of liens out that have been outstanding for a number of years. And my understanding, it can reach as much as $1 million out there. And there's, I think, roughly 12 properties that have been identified that have been annual continuances on their lien process, and the fines keep adding up. It's also my understanding that we haven't done much in the past to collect on these liens, and so therefore a lot of the liens are just, they're not being paid because we're not enforcing the liens. So when speaking with Ralf and what we could do about our liens that we have, he reached out and talked to Mr. Weidner from his law firm, who specializes in collecting liens for municipalities. So if it's okay with Ralf, we'll move forward.
I think the only thing I'd add also is Matt Weidner is here today.
Weidner,
and his firm is employed by a number of cities in Pinellas and Hillsborough County. Lien collection runs the gamut. There's a diverse spectrum of types of liens. Not every lien is appropriate for foreclosure. Certain derelict or blighted properties where it appears that the owner has abandoned the property and is not taking care of it, and Holden or Shannon Roxby are out there mowing the lawn every month, doing repairs. The construction maintenance fees are adding up. The penalties have accrued. No one's taking care of the properties or bringing them into compliance. Might be appropriate on a case-by-case basis for lien collection. And I'll let Matt explain what he's been doing with the city of St. Petersburg and some of the other cities, and which ones are appropriate and which ones may not be. And also how to retain control with the city and the city council or commission in determining which properties to move forward on.
Good afternoon to the Commission, and thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. As they mentioned, I've been working for City of St. Pete, Clearwater, Hillsborough County, Largo, identifying those liens that are the most problematic for you as elected officials and for staff, and targeting those liens in order to be responsive to your constituents and your stakeholders. When you have properties out there that are blighted and abandoned, you've got a great staff that's out there putting up liens on there, but if they're not being enforced, you wind up with, and if I may publish to the Commission, a situation like this. This is one of the properties that was targeted by staff. May I publish to Clerk? Well, in any event, you got a property there that has been derelict, has been blighted for a very long time, and the liens that you've got up there are not being respected. What this does is gives you a tool to be responsive to your stakeholders. Then I'd be working with staff. Staff would identify a property that maybe you've heard about for years, and we would file a foreclosure action on that. I don't charge you anything. I absorb all the costs up front end, and this really provides an opportunity for you to fill some of those budget holes. I hear the conversation earlier, and these, look, they're good budget times, but still, this is found money. There is a significant amount of money on your books that is sitting there waiting to be collected, and quite frankly, I think you've got an obligation to collect those liens. You remain in control of every single one of them, staff and ultimately you folks as elected officials, but it's just a real powerful tool for you to be responsive to those people that you ultimately work for. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Matt, so basically, you're just on a contingency basis, right?
Yes, sir. It costs about $2,000 at the front end.
Okay. And and we give you the right to negotiate. So if somebody owes $10,000 and they'll pay $8,000, you're able to negotiate that, or you got to come to us first with it?
You will give me parameters. I work for you. I go away if you want it to go away.
Okay. This is a well overcooked idea. We should have done this a long time ago, but since with the numbers that we're talking about, does this have to go out to bid or anything, or no? I mean, is it?
It's actually falls under the legal representation, and since it's a contingency fee, it's just as long as it's done with the city attorney's blessing, I think we're covered.
I want to
under
make
the
sure I
charter.
bring it to the city commission because we have that issue about all lawyers working for the city.
Right.
Right, so this will be on the agenda if you deem so at the February meeting.
Good by me.
I also want to add up, we've seen Matt give presentations to the Code Enforcement Association. If you could tell them a little bit more about the association and what's happening informally in Pinellas County with the other municipalities.
Yes, sir. So where this started, I was a special magistrate code enforcement for City of St. Petersburg. At the end of the day, sitting up there, we'd certify 50, 100 grand worth of liens. I said, where are we collecting the money? They said, well, we don't really. That started 5 years ago, I suppose. Since then, I've been making these meetings, formal presentations in front of the Florida Association of Code Enforcement Officers, and really informing them about the magnitude of liens that are sitting out there and their duty and obligation to collect on behalf of stakeholders and taxpayers. You're paying salary to code enforcement, you're paying salary to the sheriff, and you've got an obligation to collect that money. I think one of the key things, however, we talk about the punitive component of this. It is economic development. What you will be doing is identifying, vacant lots. Sometimes people have just forgotten about it. If there's a state, someone dies, they don't know how to turn that. I know you've got some really high-profile properties along Gulf Boulevard, for instance, that, you're spending your taxpayer dollars to take care of some investor's property. That stops immediately. You were in power and control to make them do something, to compel them to take care of their property in a way that the citizens around you would support. Yes, sir.
I had a couple questions, but I don't know that they're for you, Matt. They might be for our staff to identify the total dollar value of all the code enforcement and special assessment lien, or the assessment liens that we have lost in the last, perhaps maybe lost money that we obviously can't recover. What is outstanding on the books right now? What is the dollar amount? And you might not know that. That might be for us.
But I will tell you, when I give my presentation, I say that is the very first step. From a management standpoint, we identify the universe of liens, and I already met with Holden and said, get a spreadsheet and identify the total amount of liens that are out there. And then, some of that may be lost, but frankly, I believe there may be a bigger pool of it back there to collect, as an example from title companies and things. One of the phenomenon, this is technical, but, you may have a lien that was $5,000, $10,000, and the property got sold a couple times just because that lien was ignored. But now you have the ability, I think the obligation to go back and collect that money.
Yeah, I do too, because I know since I've just been sitting here for the last couple of years, and I've never felt comfortable that the Board of Commissioners should even be discussing liens and assessments and outstanding things. I think it becomes a political football, okay, because it might be your neighbor, whatever. I don't think that it's the role of the commissioners, okay, to decide what, to excuse liens or not to excuse liens. But I guess my question to you is, or another question is that since you do work in Largo, St. Pete, and Clearwater, how long have you been working with them? And can you just give us an idea of your success ratio? Or
2016 is when we started as a code enforcement officer, and in 17 I began with the city. I think there's 600 or so cases, millions, I don't know the exact number, but two sides to this. Number one, we collect the money, but you also are turning that property over. At the end product is that lot, that vacant abandoned lot goes into the public auction. Builders, neighbors, if you want a garden, the next door neighbor can bid on it. And that lot that had sat vacant for a long time now becomes an economic asset in your community. City Clearwater peels back some properties and retains them for affordable housing, maybe turns them over to Habitat, something like that. But I guess the critical point is, when I met with staff, Holden and the sheriff, you got these folks that are just really enthusiastic, and yet, I don't want to speak out of turn, but maybe they're a bit demoralized because they're out there doing this work all the time and nothing's happening. And one of the most powerful things that I heard from City of St. Pete, everyone that I worked with, is the morale boost that this causes. Because now you got somebody out there that can do something and be responsive to the neighbors on either side. I agree with your sentiment that, this political football is not really something you want, right? You have a city code that says we're going to enforce the city code evenly, and then once that fine is affixed, there's actually some really good case law that says, sorry, neighbor, sorry, Madam Parishioner or clergy member, whatever, it's out of my hands. And I think that's an important thing to focus on going forward.
So for each case, it's different to where the code enforcement officer drops or goes to you, right? I mean, in each case, it depends on what those infractions have been.
Absolutely.
Okay. And let's see, did I have anything else? No, but I guess the question maybe that I have for staff is that since this type of an arrangement is on a contingency basis, you have no idea what you're going to maybe get back, but this type of service is not something that goes through a bid process, correct?
No, we don't have to in this particular case. You can have an attorney do this on an hourly basis, but you'll spend more money in the end. If you can explain a little bit about how your contingency fee.
Yes, sir. So a contract's included in there, and it's the same one I've used elsewhere. Again, the cost for every case is about $2,000 up front. How much it declares at auction depends on the market. They're going to be big ones out there. But the good news is that you are allowed to peel back ones that are in a compelling circumstance, someone that perhaps we don't want to foreclose on, or you negotiate it down to a lower amount to be, reasonable and responsive. The most important thing is that ultimately you are the client, the city. You're always in control. If at the last minute some fact pops up that gives you some unease about this particular property, you peel it off. But if you're dealing with a builder, a developer, a persistent violator, then you may say we can't exercise any discretion here. Thank you.
Later in the agenda today at item H, we're going to be talking about giving the special magistrate the power to reduce liens rather than coming to you.
And if I may, I think the thought process on that, which we'll address when we get to that issue, but I think it's a judicial situation where the magistrate already cast a ruling and assessed whatever the fines are going to be. So if there is going to be any modification, and actually after 30 days of his ruling, is my understanding, that really stands, that order stands. So unless they've appealed it, but they do have a right to come back and ask for a modification, but that would take it back into the judicial realm where it should be, not the political realm, and that would go before the magistrate. But it's kind of putting the cart before the horse here. But
yes, sir. I did share that just to this concept of coming back and pleading a sob story months or years after the fact puts the elected folks in a difficult position. That process of pleading your case needs to be robust at the front end. I know you've looked at your procedures. They are clean and tight. And then after that, you just have to respect the work that your staff has done in affixing that fine. It's out of your hands at that point in time.
And just one more item with one thing I am impressed with Matt. He also looked at the downside. There were some negative situations that came up that just shouldn't have been pursued for the amount of money that was there. So we have to be realistic about it. And, if you have a $500 fine and you can't go and, take somebody's business or home or whatever, and obviously having homestead on a property also dictates the fact of how far you can go with enforcing liens. So, but I was quite impressed with that for what it's worth.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, staff and council.
Do we have any public comments on that?
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive, Madeira Beach. I really like the idea of taking it out of politics. That's just like the way to go 100%. I mean, you shouldn't have anything to do with the neighbor's property, the mayor's property, the contractor's property, some business. It should not even be questioned. But I didn't hear your full answer. You said it's kind of like the $2,000 to start, but you get a percentage of the lien, correct?
Go ahead.
And that would be the final part of the question that didn't get answered.
Sure.
Matt, can you come to the microphone? Also, I think the 2,000, you covered the 2,000, correct, up front?
So in your package is the contract, the way it works. The fees are $2,000 at the front end, and then I collect the prescribed statutory, or the bar's approved contingency fee, 25% up to 33 or 40% of whatever you net recover. Right now, you're probably not recovering much of anything. If a lien goes up and it's $100,000, it can be from 25% up to 40%, but typically the 33% is what I would recover. But you're never on the hook for any cost. So if I don't get anything, I don't eat, and I eat all the costs.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor, I'm not sure if Mr. Preston was done. I just want to make sure we didn't want to. Okay.
Okay, was there any other public comments? All right, the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Does this mean that we've got consensus to move forward and have,
Sure.
bring this up in a?
Well, my plan is to have it on the actual agenda
Okay,
for
good.
the February
Okay,
meeting
that's
that you
all
can
right.
vote on it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And while we're just at a quick point, I did have some phone calls made in reference to the Crystal Island issue, and I don't know if the availability of the sitting commission right here for Thursday at 2:00. I'm not sure of Commissioner Douthert if he'll be well enough to be here, but he's going to try to make it. Does that fit into everybody's schedule?
I can do it
Sure.
Thursday. at
No, we're
2
not going to let you.
Well, we have a rule now, not supposed to. 2 o'clock?
2:00 Thursday, is that?
I'm good.
Okay, and so for those of you that are here that were in the other meeting, we're going to, is there any problem with getting it scheduled, Madam Clerk, for 2:00 Thursday?
There are none. All I have to do is just repost for that day.
Okay, great. I apologize for taking the time, Madam Vice Mayor, but I just wanted to get that resolved.
Okay, no problem. Okay, the next item on the agenda is ADT commercial proposal for a citywide video security system. And I believe this is Walt.
Vice Mayor and Commissioners, the memo that you have in front of you is pretty self-explanatory as far as some of the research that we had done on video security system. And I'd like to start off, there's a little bit of a history of our cameras and the status of our cameras at City Hall, and I'll turn it over to Frank DeSantis to give you a status of that.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Mr. Pierce has asked me to come up and say a couple words about our existing software and camera system. Just want to let you know that we received that day one when we came into New City Hall, so it's about 5 years old, and it's also outdated. We've had a problem since day one with it. The name of the software is called Digital Watchdog Software, and there is some help, assistance with some folks over in Tampa that we've asked in the past. But the software itself, there's no actual upgrade for the existing software that we have. They're recommending that we buy new software, and the equipment itself is outdated. City Hall has 3 exterior cameras and 5 interior cameras, and no recording right now. It's completely non-operational system. The rec center, like I say, the rec center has 1 interior camera, 2 exterior cameras, and they have the same problem, same system, same problem. So,
Excuse me, just a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Wanted to ask you, what about the cameras down at the Marina? Did we take care of the cameras down there?
Mr. Pierce has that in his ADT.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, cameras at the marina have basically been, as my memo indicates, not functioning at least for the past 2 years. and it was one of the 25 recommendations, number 24, made by the Carr, Riggs, and Ingram in their forensic examination. So their challenges are security, safety, an insurance standpoint, and as far as providing information for information requests. We do have a representative here, Dave Ten, from ADT, if he could come up and just is available to address any questions, and he can probably, the presentation that staff saw on ADT was very impressive, and the product and the equipment as well. So I'll let Dave indicate some of his credentials and some of the things that he's accomplished.
Okay, Dave Ten, ADT Commercial. Been in the security business for 35 years, and we have done everything from large DOD to small cities such as Safety Harbor and size of Madeira Beach. So if you probably know ADT, we've been in the business for 144 years. I started 10 years after that, but so we have state-of-the-art system proposed for the city. We did a demo that shows exactly how the system works, and it's just a perfect fit. And that's really, I don't know if you have questions, but I don't have a whole lot I can get into unless I get technical. So.
And Vice Mayor and Commissioners, one thing I wanted to make as far as fiscal impact, we do see this as an emergency item because of the, sensitivity, things that I mentioned as far as safety and right now we really don't have any type of, as Frank indicated, any type of monitoring system at all. The fiscal impact can go either way. We looked at leasing, or direct purchase. If we went the leasing route, it would basically be about $60,000. We would be able to find a budget item for that, which would be tied toward a capital account for this municipal complex, and were dollars that rolled over, so we would have enough money in that account to cover this, and those monies haven't been really allocated yet. And although staff is working on how they're going to spend those funds for projects in City Hall here, if it's direct purchase, you're looking about $200,000, which would not be in the budget, and would probably require a budget amendment. That's a little bit too much that our existing budget could cover. So we could go either way with this, leasing or right-out purchase. I would like to mention one other thing. We have maps of where these cameras are going to be, and I'm going to ask the city manager to elaborate on those maps.
A lot of what happens with the security measures is not a public record for that reason. So that's why we don't have those details included in the proposal. They will be part of the contract, but it's protected as an exemption under the public records law. Obviously, we don't want to let everybody know where we're going to have a camera so they can go do something where we don't have a camera located at. So, but that is open if you would like to see that. Obviously, you're the elected officials, and you have a right to view that. The other issues that I just wanted to cover real quickly, and I come from a security background, obviously law enforcement, but right after 9/11, I was the Homeland Security Coordinator for the city of Boca Raton. So I dealt with all the city facilities, the video monitoring that was available at the time, and the security basically. And I was really impressed when I saw the presentation, because they are even looking at software technology and recognition in the future. So one of the things I liked about the presentation, obviously we're concerned about active shooters and somebody coming into the building or assaulting or robbing somebody in our parking lot. You know, obviously we haven't had that occur, but we want to make sure that we do everything that we can to make our citizens and our employees as safe as possible. And with this system and some of the technologies that they're working on, you might even be able to get an alert sent to you when somebody's coming through the parking lot with a weapon. And that's how sophisticated some of their research is going. They're not there yet, but I really was impressed the fact that they are really taking it to the next step. So some of the technologies that they've been using on the military side are now opening up for governments and public safety. The other issue is records retention. Currently right now, to fulfill a records request for video, we have to go back through the server that is antiqued and can't even locate the information, so it takes hours upon hours to try to find a segment that somebody might want. With this system, it's all automatic, it's programmed, fits our records retention, which is the state law of 30 days, and it automatically deletes it. If there's something that we need for evidentiary purposes or personnel issues or something else, that's something that we can take out within that 30 days. So this system has that. A lot of systems have that. The thing that really impressed me, like I said, was looking to the advanced technologies that they're looking on bringing on board.
One other thing, too, I just want to comment. The city manager has agreed not to include the fire department in this because they have their separate system, and they've been able to prove to the city manager that they have an adequate system at this point in time. So the way we would, looking at this, phase one would be the Marina, of course, City Hall, and then the rec center.
In that step. So the Marina's going first. And, obviously, that's where we have a lot of resources that we're looking at. And then, obviously, after that, City Hall and the rec center.
Dave, could you mention some of the other governmental entities that you've installed this in?
Yeah, well, City of Safety Harbor, we do the City of Miami. Other states, just, I can't list them all, but this system is not necessarily installed by us, but is installed in southern, South Florida, I think Sarasota and other cities south. So it is state of the art. There's nothing out there right now that's expandable or it's in the works of, as far as identifying, as the commissioners or manager said, that will identify a person that's has something unusual or identify a face. Once you implant that in the system, you can start cutting back and limit to what it is you want to see, which gets you immediate results on retrieving information.
I have one question, or maybe a couple. The example that we did get was the safety harbor, okay, the cost and what's being done, and that would be something that's totally different from our city, because it appears that they only have, their scope was really just for the lobby, so that is a very different scenario than ours, correct?
Right.
So.
I'm sorry. And that's the cost basis for the cameras and the base system. And we're kind of expanding from that point. So theoretically, when we look at the Marina, and the Marina is probably going to have a few more cameras than their lobby, but we're using that as the comparison. We're trying to piggyback on a contract that they had with Bradenton, but we were unable to use the piggyback virtue on it. So, and that's really the decision. It's up to the Board of Commissioners. So if, we need to go out to an RFP, I mean, we're prepared to go out and do that as well, if that's what you decide to do. We're just trying to bring a system in that we can implement and also be able to fall within the procurement guidelines of having a contract to piggyback on.
Okay, that was the answer to my question, I guess, because I was thinking that shouldn't this go out to bid, number one? And does the state offer any kind of a wraparound for municipalities? I mean, does the state, is there a state agreement that says we will give you X number of money, or we work with 20 different communities like Miami or Fort Lauderdale or Panama City, and so it gets to be a lesser amount, it becomes a pooled amount or something? Mm-hmm. Is that possible? I mean, is that something that we should consider? Right.
The state contract, when I gave you the bits and pieces, but it didn't give you the full ability of having somebody come in, install, service, and cover us for technology upgrades in the future. You can buy cameras, you can buy all the switching equipment, monitors, all that. But what we were looking for was a package, since we don't have the technical expertise here dealing with the security systems, and also a name that stands behind it that, we're not going to have to worry, like with the particular equipment that we currently own, it took like 5 or 6 phone calls to finally track somebody down that deals with that equipment. All the vendors that we utilized aren't in business anymore, or the vendors at least that we utilized at the time aren't in business. So I have, comfort in knowing that we have a known entity that's involved in this process. But again, we can go out and do, RFPs and do it that way too. So it's really a juncture and that we're at. And if that's the commission's decision, I live with that too.
Okay. First off, I completely agree with Frank. I've worked here, so I know what our camera system looks like. So we've tried to track down some things before in the past, and it's not very good. Secondly, ADT is a great company, but I agree with Commissioner Weinstein on a couple points. A contract of this size, first and foremost, I mean, what I'm looking at, and this might be only partial of what Safety Harbors is, this is a contract for $3,200. I would hope to heck if we're going to spend $200,000, we're getting better pricing than the pricing that they got for the $3,200 installment of this. There's a lot of security companies out there, so I mean, I don't know. I think it might be worth a peek just to see what's going on with that. Secondly, you guys know how I feel about budget amendments. Is there stuff that can wait until next year? Is there something that we don't need this year that we can do this? I've got no tolerance at this point to approve any budget amendments when we're spending the kind of money that we're spending right now. So maybe we can figure something out. Maybe you guys can dig deep, uncover all the stones, see where we can find some cash. But I think we're kind of a little early on. But Dave, your company's great. That's not what I'm talking about. I just, I think, anything we're supposed to, through the process, go out and get 3 bids, even if it's a smaller project. I mean, something like this, no, I think it deserves a look.
Thank you, Mr. Ten, for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on this item? Sure, come on up.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bay Shore Drive, Madeira Beach. I just had a couple comments. Purchase versus a lease. Usually my understanding with a lease that the equipment and software gets updated on a regular basis, where if you purchase it, then you have to repurchase the software, repurchase the hardware. So I think a lease would be a better opportunity for us. Mr. Andrews, as far as the budget, we have a budget. We need to find the money someplace else where we can let something else go, and if we need to do this, then we need to do this. And it sounds like we need to do it. And then my other question was, and it leads on to wide ADT, I know that there's other good firms out there that provide a service as well. And then the other part is when we look at record retention, is that something that's done within the city where somebody can get their hands on it, or is it done with the company themselves so it's under permanent retention without us getting our fingers in it? I came from a little different city from Alaska. It was Valdez. It's where the Trans-Alaska Pipeline ended. But Homeland Security put a little different scenario, but they put millions of dollars into that town of 3,500. And I don't know what's available in Homeland Security or anything like that, but I would imagine Mr. Daniels is looking at things like that as well. So that's just a couple comments. I think we need the cameras. I think it's advantageous for our employees and our public to come in and out of here. I think that's something that's needed, and eventually I'd like to see it expand throughout the city.
Was there any other? No? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, which is the professional records and information management services with Clara.
I'll just briefly cover this. For several years now, the city has been contracting with SML Incorporation. They handle the records management part. We have an off-site storage. The city does not have a lot of room to store records, and plus we're in a flood zone. And so we have them in an area where we don't have to worry about that. The records that we have here is like short-term, but anyway, the contractor handles all that, and the retention lets us know when it's time to destroy certain records and all. The city has been budgeting each year for a certain amount, and the contract is up for renewal for the fiscal year 2020, and it's up to the board what they want to do. We can continue with SML. I am looking for other prices, and it's hard to get prices for that service, but I'm still looking. Put out 2 questions last week for 2 new companies, and one's already turned it down, and I'm working with another to see if they can do it. They do it by the days, and S&L charges $2,000 a day for their service, and they come here, work with the departments and all, and get their records for the year stored. And there is a need in the clerk's office where we could use that money and have a part-time person just using that amount of money and doing more in the area of public records requests, whether it just be part-time just for that amount. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm good with continuing with SML, even though we can use that little bit of help. But that's up with the board, and look at it again for 2021 and just continue with how we're doing it now. So I just wanted to put my options out there and just to see what you wanted to do and how you wanted me to bring it forward at the February meeting.
Clara, I just got a quick, simple question. Looks like we're getting 2 or 3 different options here. What is actually your recommendation? What do you want to do?
I would like sooner or later, would like a person working part-time or full-time that would take care of public records requests. We have a big need for that. We get swamped with public records requests. And also in handling the records, I thought that if we combined that and this person handled the records management and information side and the public records, I think it would be beneficial for what we are paying for somebody to just come 15 to 17 days at $2,000.
And well, I mean, and I think Matt's great. He's a rock star. He's,
Yes,
I've dealt with him, and he's terrific. But I agree. I mean, there's obviously some other things that we could bring somebody in. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of open to any suggestions that we have, but I do agree that you probably need somebody to help you with records requests, and I do think that we could probably use somebody in here. We just got to find the money for it. That's kind of my only thought process on it.
Right, and he's up to date mostly on the paper records, and this year's for 2020 is the focus of getting rid of all the electronic files and all in the network, the systems that we use, accounting systems, everything that has reached its retention, because we also are responsible for making sure that those records are also destroyed in a timely manner, including the security camera, that they took offline. The retention for that is only 30 days. And if we used Matt again for this year, then we can be up to date on our electronic records and him going through and getting all those destroyed. But like I said, the decision is up to the commission and how you would want me to move forward. Because of the price, it is over $15,000. Even with $15,000, I like to get prices, and I'm trying to do that and like to bring something for the board to consider in February.
Okay, so at this time here, you're just looking for like a consensus as to what you want us to do, or?
Yes, ma'am. To come back with Matt for 2020 and get caught up on the electronic side, the video and all that. And because when he comes, he just will not just be destroying old video footage. He will be, of course, he can't come unless we have a contract in place. And he'll be going through all our network systems and making sure that we have nothing in there that's already, which we do. We have a lot of stuff that's reached its retention, and he'll work on that with staff and get rid of that. So,
Okay, so
I'm leaving that to the board, what you
So
want to do.
just a basic consensus at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you want to do? No.
I just don't know which option, but I think that I think it's something that we should probably consider, yes. I think also that your statements about Nat and that Nat is the one with Steve Lewis, right? That's the SML or whatever.
Yes,
it is.
they're
Okay.
very good at
I thought
what
it
they
was.
do. They're very good at what they do.
Right. I think he certainly has probably done made an excellent contribution to contribution, not meaning for free, of course, but a good contribution, meaning for the abilities that he has and the work that he's produced. So I think that we need to consider that too.
Madam Vice Mayor, if I can, hearing the clerk's comments, I think we can address that position needs in the budget and see how we can vet that through the process and come back during the summer when we go through the budget process with you all. But I agree with her as well that we do need the expertise to take us to the next level of dealing with the other records that we have, electronic records, not just video, but electronic records as well.
Can I open up to public comment, please? Okay, thank you. I'll close it. Okay, so I'm sorry, Bob, we're looking just for our consensus, for her to continue looking.
I think hearing that, we're going to
Yes.
move through with the contract for the meeting in February
Yes.
to renew the contract agreement with Matt, and then we'll include the position needs that, in fact, in February, we're analyzing all of the positions within our budget.
Okay.
So we'll include the new positions that, the staff brings forward as well, and kind of vet that process, and have it back for you all when we talk about the budget in the summer.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. All right, the next item, was there anyone who wanted to speak on public comments on that? Okay, I'll close that. Okay, the next item is the National Softball Association, the 2020 contract.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. So what I have here is essentially a thought proposal to work with National Softball Association to put together some contract pricing for the 2020 year. A little bit of background on the NSA is they're an organization that since the inception of these new softball fields has been running tournaments on weekends here. We've gone back and forth as far as level of service, staffing, and what we need to service these tournaments, and essentially it boils down to once they get their game started, we're in their way. So we're essentially just here to empty trash cans during the day of the tournament. They don't require any sort of concession issues, which they don't require any sort of first aid or anything else. They have their schedule, they run their tournaments. So essentially these proposed rates would allow us to know going forward kind of ballpark our exact budget amount, what we would expect those weekends based on the number of teams. And essentially for them too, it's easier. It's an easier sell for them knowing how much he's going to have to pay to utilize these facilities per team and a budgeting purpose, because they've got to budget field rentals, umpires, equipment, all that stuff. So essentially, this is kind of a commitment to move forward with them, give them a set price that they know that they'll have to work with and know that we'll have to work with, and then we'll be able to do our staffing more effectively and efficiently on that in the long run. So if you have any questions on that, I was just hoping, essentially we would just move forward and look to put together a contract for them and get these dates locked in.
I don't see a problem anywhere with this.
Can I have a couple of questions?
Sure, go ahead.
I think it's great that we are still looking forward to working with the association and the teams. I think it's probably been a really good effort. But I think I asked this before, and I might not have. So we are an attractive location, certainly here in Madeira Beach and on the water, and I think that's great. But I wanted to know, I guess, or have you told us this before? Because I didn't notice it in any of the information. What's the total amount of, even though you said there's very little work on our side, okay, but what is the total amount of revenue to be gained versus the very small amount which you said of maintenance or expenditures on our part? Okay, go ahead.
It really depends on the weekend. The most recent tournament they did in December was a one-day tournament, and it was, I want to say 6 hours of games throughout the day. So I had a staff member, we prepped the fields on Friday during normal work hours. So they were ready to go. We came in on Saturday morning, unlocked the gates, and then I paid a staff member to sit there and wait until the trash was full. Whereas through this, our anticipation is, there's two options they can go with. If they they have a tournament where they're not going to need any mound changes, which depending on the age group, there's the pitching distance, we make changes in the field. If there's no mound changes, oftentimes I'll leave them trash bags, and if they pull the trash themselves, then we don't charge them for a staffing fee. Because, like I said, we're really not needed out there. But as far as, the one I was talking about in December, we had a staff member sit there. So I paid somebody $15 an hour ballpark figure to essentially just sit there and wait till the trash was full. Whereas, if we have the mound change, that's why we would charge them, because we would need to come back. So mound change is $25. That's an hour of staffing, and we would run the trashes while we were there. And it eliminates the purpose of somebody sitting around doing nothing versus, just as needed basis. Equally, we've worked with scheduling. If they have office work to do, we have them schedule and they pull double duty that day. They'll do office work and then do trashes. But this is just minimize and kind of target exact, there's one thing, I can provide hours to work, but at the same time, I don't want to overwork my staff. There's a big difference between having me and my staff in the office on Monday through Friday, same days where we can work together on items, whereas they're there by themselves kind of doing some of their other stuff. They're not going to bother me on a Saturday if they have a question about a project they're working on. So we just really want to specialize the staffing with this. So As far as you were saying expenditures versus the revenue, it just depends, because if that day there was a few games, we still paid somebody to sit there for 6 hours. But if it's all weekend long, or that's why the team amount, because really it's with the discounted rate that they get for multiple tournaments, it comes to like $18 an hour for the field. Well, if they're guaranteed 4 games, those 4 games they play, there's going to be 2 teams on the field, so they're both paying the $60. So it's going to come in higher than that at the per hour rate, like based on the math. It's just there's a lot of the other intangibles that we don't have to deal with, and that's there's this discount, and did we line it in extra time or this and that. It's just, this would be an inclusive rate that makes sure that we're with a set number each time. So
You can say, though, that it's, I'm not looking for a great revenue. I just don't want to lose anything, okay?
Right.
So, yeah, so that's all I'm saying. So you can pretty well ascertain that it's it's not a revenue source, okay, but it's not losing anything, right?
correct. Really, if we want to put it revenue versus actually losing money, the only time we're technically losing money is when it sits empty, because we don't have anything running out there.
Right.
If we're running a little league, or if we're running these tournaments, it's generating revenue somehow, whether it's on the fields through rentals, whether it's to the concession stand that helps offset other little league expenses, whether it's business tax from where these people are eating, spending money at Winn-Dixie, going to the restaurants on Madeira Way. There's always some sort of revenue attached to anything going on over there. So,
Okay. I guess I meant direct revenue, to the city, to our coffers. But can you just tell me, Jay, is the proposed 2020 rates, are those the same as what they are now? I mean, what they have been. Are they in line?
these were some numbers that we used previously, but over the past year, it was they paid the hourly rate.
Okay, they've always paid the hourly
Yeah,
rate.
it's, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted.
Hello, Jay. And with all due respect to Bob and Jay, I think this is an administrative issue. I don't think we really have to weigh in on this at all. I mean, the guy's got to run his business the way he's got to run his business, and I will vouch for the fact that there's nothing done at the rec center that's done at a loss. So they were designed always to be profitable, to always have a charge that's above any kind of fees that go in. And this group, what Jay kind of brushed over real quick is, while some of these tournaments they're all revenue producing for the city. They all go into our coffers. They're all revenue producing. But on the occasion, these tournaments get funded by Visit St. Pete Clearwater, and we get a pretty good chunk of money in order to do that is just directly paid to us. So, frankly, it's, again, I think it's if we start nitpicking and getting into everybody's business, we're going to be up here for a really long time from here on in. So, Jay, good job with that. And they're a good organization, and it's better to deal with one person doing 6 tournaments than 6 people doing 6 tournaments, for sure. So, thanks.
Just to clarify on the administrative side, Mr. Daniels and I did kick this around a little bit. For transparency purposes, we brought it forth. And that's why it went straight to the consent agenda last time. So figured at least the information was there, but having been able to discuss it, so it allows us further information as well. So,
is there anyone in the audience that has anything to say about this? Okay, that'll be closed then. Thanks, Jay. The next item on the agenda is the Jones Pass Seafood Festival.
yes, good afternoon again. Essentially, this topic is looking to move forward with, the permission to put together a contract agreement for Jones Pass Seafood Festival in the city. We looked at last year's contract between myself, Mr. Daniels, and Ms. Flynn, who is here as well to answer questions. Essentially, based on the contract that we had last year, there's nothing really to adjust there. We would probably move forward with those attached items. But then there were 3 distinct items that we kind of got down add to the contract if we were to move forward. And with that in mind, a couple things coming up. We do have the 75th anniversary of the city approaching. This would be the third year. If we were to do a contract in 2020, this would be our third year in contract with Seafood Festival, Johns Pass Village Association, with the 75th anniversary coming up in the fourth year, and then the fifth year would be let's keep it moving forward. So our thought in this discussion was to move forward with 3 years beginning this year. And then the three items, Ms. Flynn approached us about a 10% contribution to the city out of the festival proceeds, which we would earmark specifically for Johns Pass Village beautification and improvements. This is essentially, it's a good faith gesture in both directions. Not only would be the Seafood Festival or the Village Association be upping their contribution to the city, but we would then in turn contribute it back to the village. It would, it's an offsetting cost thing, but it's also ensuring that we do have some sort of money there to continue beautification of the village. Ms. Flynn did identify some event grant application opportunities. With the city partnered with the Village Association and jointly filing an application, it increases the chance that the event gets the funding or receives the funding and becomes eligible for the funding, and therefore increases the potential revenue and contribution for the event overall. So the cooperative grant application helps increase that 10% if we want to look at it just as that way, but as a whole, it increases the opportunity for the event to have more marketing dollars to spend, therefore bringing more people around to the event. And then the last thing is just the cooperative oversight and involvement with event planning and operations. We still do participate in the Johns Pass Village Association meetings and the Johns Pass Seafood Festival board meetings, but this would just allow us to help, as a city, we talk about the bidding process for different things. So, while Ms. Flynn and the board go out and search, whether it's for portable restrooms or stage rentals or whatever else, this allows us as the city to kind of get in and, for lack of better words, throw our weight around a little bit to show that she has the backing of the city. Previously, we just kind of said, here's the items we need from you. You go get your, go have your event. But in this case, we would be able to help, help negotiate costs and ensure that things are being done properly to a further, from a further standpoint. So including those three items, I think that allows us this gets the city a little more involved as far as decision making and cooperative work. But it improves the opportunities for both the event and the city for something of this magnitude. And it's been going on for years. And in our mind, we just want to continue to help make it better. She's done a lot of listening as far as any of the recommendations we've made over the past 2-3 years. That's why you see, for example, you see food trucks instead of specific vendors, they're all inclusive. They're cleaning up after themselves. So that's just one example, but there's been a lot of improvements. So we just want to keep the momentum going. I know this last year was marred a little bit by the weather, but we want to continue to do what we can. So looking for thoughts and direction on this.
Did you have any questions for Sonny?
No, I just look forward to seeing the proposal. I think it's a great idea. I think city should lock arms with the Merchants Association and let's make this a bigger and better festival. I mean, there's a lot of really good things that can come of this. There's more elite funding available for a city other than an individual going after this. So I mean, if we get instead of getting $25,000 for it, we get $250,000. We can get Aerosmith to play out there, man. It'd be awesome. But yeah, so I'm all for it. This was something that we beat around 3-4 years ago when I was here, and it got sidetracked a little bit. But I'm glad this is coming to fruition. I think that this has always been a great idea. We should be, working together with the Seafood Festival and with the Merchants Association. I know we've had a couple of ideas where a portion of our proceeds or our proceeds go into the beautification of Johns Pass, which would be just fantastic. I mean, and like I said, everything helps each other because the money that, if we partner with them, the money that goes to them marketing. Well, why would we give the money to market? Well, we give money to market because then our parking meters are all filled and we benefit in the long run. This is a complete win-win-win-win-win situation. There's really no downfall to it. So, Jay, good job.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think that the information is very helpful too. And for many years back, before 20 years ago, before any maybe people were noticed it, but we had the Seafood Festival, definitely, no matter what it was called, the Seafood Fest or whatever, there was a certain contribution, 10, 15, I think couple years when Pat Johnson and I worked on it together, there's a 20% contribution to the city. Those might have been the glory days, I don't know. But, and it was earmarked for the beautification, and it was spent on it. The city got it in their coffers, and they spent it, and it was very worthwhile. Yeah, I've worked on the festival for 30 years probably, and not in the last 10 or 8, but it certainly is a good event. I think it's well attended. I hope that we will have really a lot of children's things. I think that was one thing that was certainly missed last year, maybe the year before, I don't remember. But yeah, thanks for bringing it.
I think it's been great. Every year it seems like there's always something new going on all the time. I'd like to see y'all bring those little crab races back like they used to have. I don't know if you remember them or not, but that was a lot of fun.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and Commissioners. We're excited about this year, in addition to, and we're hoping that we get a contract. We're excited about this year in the planning stages already. We have the trick-or-treating coming back, the kids' costume coming back. We're working with Wild West. They're going to do their King Rush, which is their Kingfish tournament, which also includes the child's portion of it and the crab races. So we have some other events more focused on the kids' side of it. The reason we didn't do that last year was because of the date. We were way too far ahead of Halloween, so we couldn't hold it on our normal date because a conflict of interest with another fishing tournament on the other side in Treasure Island. So planning has gone back to doing our normal weekend and advertising, and we're looking forward to it. I am in direct contact with the new CEO of Visit St. Pete Clearwater, so there is promising news coming from elite funding. So there are issues that happened last year that aren't going to happen this year.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, is there any public comment? Okay, I'll close that. All right, the next item on the agenda will be for the Friends of Parks and Recreation.
Okay, this item we actually discussed on September 24th of last year. And at the time, I felt I had direction to form this organization and make sure that we were moving forward with Parks and Recreations group to perform as a 501c3 and help us with planning and other events and fundraising and all this to help offset any of expenditures within our related departments. It did make it to the consent agenda, but was pulled to discuss again. So I guess I'm at the point where I feel there may be some questions or concerns related to this, or if we wanted to put it back to move forward.
No questions here. You have my permission to move forward. I think we've been beating this around for 4 months, 5 months. I don't know what the holdup is.
I think it's a great idea, too. It really is, to get everybody out there like this.
I think the understanding was, and the question I might have had back then was still whether it should be an ad hoc committee as opposed to a 501c3. I think, is that what you're looking at? Is morphing it into a 501c3?
Yes. Yeah, and so there's a couple supporting articles in this. Essentially what organizations have done, rec departments, parks departments throughout the country, they formed the 501c3, and they can go out and they can solicit sponsorships. They can run events. You know, if we did say we did a dog park event, you know, one of the arms of this group could be the Friends of the Dog Park. They host an event. They raise the money as the 501c3. So you have the donations can be made to this organization, and then they can essentially donate that back to the city for a special project. I would still, as the recreation director or somebody on my staff, if not more than one of us, would still serve as a non-voting member for this group. But essentially, we would have residents form this group. They would run it as a board, 501c3 organization. They would do fundraising activities. And you know, another opportunity for this is when we talk about pulling alcohol permits for events. This 501c3 organization could pull that and do the sales and then be able to write the check back to the city, whereas, and it's an extra step away from the exposure, whereas if we pulled it ourselves. So it's a couple of extra opportunities for them to run out, you know, do events themselves. We would look for enough people to be able to do events, do activities themselves, help us with fundraising, and they wouldn't exactly. I mean, it still follows all the other stuff. We have to keep all the public records. There's still all those other responsibilities that we have to have. It would just be under a different formation, which allow a little more freedom.
And would, city attorney, would it require then the formation of the, like how we have the, not the chartered committees, but the committees such as the budget review and the other, would it still require then to have that type of a contract drawn up so that
Typically, the Friends of the Parks around the state are organized separate from the city. They're a 501c3.
Right.
They're set up as a
So it has
separate
nothing to do with
not-for-profit. They do have some public records concerns to take care of, especially depending on who's on the board. But if they're all citizens and they're not liaisons, and you don't have a liaison, if you only have one staff member going, typically they keep them separate so that they can do their own activities.
So what would the liability be for the city?
There's no liability.
No
for
liability,
Friends of
okay. I
Parks.
just have to ask because I don't know, okay.
Yeah, we would still have to, I mean, we would assist with the incorporation and insurance and other stuff, but it's just, and to me, it's an extra level of separation for these activities. You know, if they, you know, it'd be the same as, you know, I don't know if the Friends of the Library was set up as a 501c3,
Okay.
but a similar, just a fundraising arm to help
The
with
state
that.
parks have something similar. Most of your state parks will have a friend of the state parks, and sometimes by specific park.
Okay.
Okay,
That
so,
keeps their fundraising like a separate entity, so they can do things perhaps that the city sometimes doesn't want to do out of general revenue or other funds.
Some of these things listed are the same as what the rec department does now, is that correct? Like, or could do some of these activities?
Yes,
or-
they would
Okay.
help enhance that stuff.
Okay.
So, and then another benefit, and I forgot to mention this, because just, for example, say the CEO of the Tampa Bay Rays, for whatever reason, said, you know what, I really love Madeira Beach. I want to help fundraise. I want to be a part of their events committee or whatever. If it's set up as a member organization of the city, that person not being a resident wouldn't be able to join. But as a 501c3, anybody can join. You know, we've got our snowbirds that come into town. Maybe they want to be
right.
part of this and help us out.
Right.
So they could serve as board members or whatever else and assist with this. So, you know, it removes some of those limitations that, you know, we still keep all the records and everything, but it just removes those limitations for
Okay.
participation.
so Jay, all you need at this time from us is just a consensus to move forward, is what you're looking for?
Yes, that way I can put it on the agenda for the February meeting and, you know, get the final blessing and move forward.
Okay, all right, we're all set then. Okay, was there any comments from the public on it? Okay, I'll close that. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Marina Fund Profit and Loss for the fiscal year 2019 in comparison to fiscal year 2018.
Vice Mayor and Commissioners, by the way, you got a typo in my memo. It's July 14th and not June. just a little bit of a, trying to get ahead of ourselves a little bit, but it's January 14th. And I did provide some information regarding the Marina for Commissioner Andrews at that meeting. Basically, 2019 budget report and 2018 budget report, and then the commissioner indicated that he wanted a discussion of this at this workshop. To help, I created a spreadsheet, which is amendment number 1, for you, basically comparing 2019 and 2018 with the differences. And this report illustrates now a $256,353.36 excess of FY 2019 revenue over expenditures. The city auditor has been in our office the last 3 weeks, off and on, and so far has no adjustment against the Marina. I've asked him about this figure, and he pretty much has indicated to me that if he's got any adjustments, it's probably not going to be, or definitely not going to be anything significant at this time. The comparison to 18, or FY 18, shows that fuel revenue did decrease from 18 to 19 by $127,794, and I think this was part of initially Commissioner Andrews' concern, and it might be probably due to the reduction of discounts. However, the total fuel expenses decreased even more by $204,684.23. And now what I just handed out to you is how I arrived at the $127,000, which basically I'm taking the fuel sales for the 2 years, and you can see that for 2018, the fuel sales, total fuel sales, and I wanted to include the fuels, unleaded fuel sales, the diesel sales fuels, and the commercial as well. Those total sales for 18 total $2,006,156.53. For 19, it did decrease by the $127,000 to $1,878,361.77. Right below it is going to show you the purchases. For 18, $1,631,794.67, but in 2019, $1,427,110.44. There's where your decrease in the fuel of the 204 is coming from. I just wanted to break that out so to show you how I was coming up with those numbers. Basically, even though there was a decrease in revenue, the decrease in fuel contributed to a gross profit. When you consider just the fuel sales and fuel purchases, the gross profit for that is basically was over by 3%. And again, I've clarified. I've also double-checked these numbers with the auditors, and they match my figures. Also, what I also did is on this analysis to show you how good I think 2019 did, and the 256,353 is a good number, is I compared the last 5 years, and you can see, and by the way, I've attached comprehensive annual financial reports attached to this that tie back to these numbers so you can see for yourself. 2018, the excess revenue over expenditures, which is $105,122, and 17, the excess revenues less expenses was $142,474. 2016, $127,187, and in 15, or FY15, $130,179. I do have a footnote here on 2017. There was a capital contribution after net excess of $77,000 that was for dock improvements. So again, the source attached is the annual financial report, or CAFR, for those past 4 years. I do have to say that I'm pleased. This is good news. This 256,353 is a very good number. I think it's something to build upon. And one comment I wanted to make, I had a couple of people call me, and one person I really respect who works internally in City Hall, ask me, why is the Marina generating a loss? Or why is the Marina at a loss? And I think this should prove that the Marina is not generating at a loss. This 256,353 will be reported in our CAFR. And again, there might be some small adjustments that the auditor has, but again, he's indicated to me that it will not be significant.
Oh, I'll go. So it's your contention, and what you're saying to us now is that we are in much better position this year than we were last year as far as financially at the Marina.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with your memo. Let's take a look. I became aware from the city clerk, that Commissioner Andrews had received Marina profit and loss reports from the Marina. Are you saying that you were unaware that I did a records request for the Marina profit and loss statement through the clerk's office?
I just think there was some misunderstanding. I apologize if there was any miscommunication and if I might have misunderstood what the clerks told me, but I guess my ultimate goal was, as is today, is to get the right numbers to you and the commission. Okay.
Well, just so everybody's clear, I changed my records request because Walter had told Clara that he wasn't going to provide the Marina numbers to me and that I had to ask Bob for them. Clara, is that accurate? Talk to Bob about it, right? Just so we're clear, I nor any other citizen, this is no disrespect to Bob, has to ask Bob permission to obtain any public records request, okay? And so when I didn't get them, I did go a very legal and very public route to obtain the Marina's public or profit and loss version, okay?
Commissioner, can I just say something?
No, you can't, Walt. I mean, what are you going to say to define that? You basically said that. You said that to Clara.
I indicated when this figure came up before, I kind of indicated to you that I really wanted the audit to be completed and done to really give concrete numbers. I guess this issue has been pressed on us, and I didn't mind doing it, but, I really would have preferred to wait, and that was the only point I made, and I mentioned that to the city manager, and that's why he made that comment. But
who made that comment? Bob made that comment?
The comment to see him.
Well, I asked Bob about that comment, and Bob rolled his eyes. So I don't know, but you know what? Let's push on.
But the numbers are here.
Well, don't press the issue. You're not going to win this one. So let's just press on, okay? I know. In turn, you're saying then that the documents that I did acquire did not properly, I'm going to just quote you, did not properly represent the complete picture. Okay, so cool, that's our jump off point. So let's paint the complete picture then. If everybody will do me a favor, just turn to page 82 out of 118 here. Okay, so this is where, if you look over to the fifth column, it's called encumbrances, okay? So we're clear, Walter, what is an encumbrance? And that's a rhetorical question. I think everybody knows. It's a debt, okay? It's a debt that occurred in the given fiscal year. And per page 82, okay, that would be fiscal year 2019, correct?
I'm trying to find out exactly where you're at.
Okay, page 82. I'm looking at your report, your year-to-date budget report. This is the unaudited version.
Okay.
Okay, and there's an encumbrance for $174,122.73. An encumbrance, I mean, I don't know what Webster defines it as, but I worked here. I know what the encumbrance line means. That's a debt. And you can even look that even in your available budget line, you've already taken out in the fuel purchases, you already took out that $159,931.23. So my question to you is, I know that in the past, I looked at the fiscal year 2018, there are no encumbrances. Is the audited version of 2019 going to have any encumbrances?
No, the audit and the CAFR just reports revenue and expenditures.
Okay, so where's that encumbrance going to go?
that encumbrance does not show up, it's not been expended, and it's a budgeted figure. That's the way encumbrances work. That money, while it's been budgeted or a PO run against it, it doesn't become expenditure until we actually make a payment.
Okay, but now let's
That's
just.
the way
let's
an
just-
encumbrance
okay,
is.
I understand what an encumbrance is. I'm just going to tell you that this isn't a placeholder. This is obviously a bill for $159,939.23.
That's not a bill, Commissioner. It's
Then that's a really, really wild number to come up with.
It's not a bill, it's a purchase order amount.
Okay.
It could actually be deleted and come to zero. But
But you don't know where it is.
And actually, this encumbrance will roll over into the new year.
Okay, so we're minus $174,000 going into the next year.
That's not what's going to be reflected in the CAFR, sir.
Okay, well, I know what's going to be reflected in the CAFR. We're just going to play simple. Well, we'll just stick with your fantasy land numbers for a minute there. But, you know, you said that the auditor is not going to give us any significant moves. But if this is, that $174,000 is an expense. If that's correct, that comes off your $256,000 number.
That is not an expense, sir. It's an encumbrance. It's a budgeted amount. It's a purchase order. It could be
wait,
deleted
it's a purchase
at any
order.
time.
Is the purchase order exist? Did we buy the product?
No, it's not a purchase. It's an It's not even an obligation. It's an amount on a purchase order. This amount will roll over into the new year.
Okay, so
And
we're
we may
minus
not use it.
$159,000 in fuel purchases for the next year.
Right.
Okay, but we purchased it in 2019. Okay, well, you know what? Let's stick with your fantasy land numbers for a minute, and we'll go to page 78. Okay?
Commissioner,
Come on.
please.
Okay, well, I'm pointing something out. He's the one arguing with me that I'm wrong.
But
an encumbrance is a debt, Bob. That's what an
no.
encumbrance is, and he's trying to spin
Okay.
it a different way. So please let me finish my statement. I'll
Well,
be done in a
just
couple
please,
minutes.
without the comments. We want to keep civility, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we're back to page 78. Okay, the side-by-side comparison. And remember, the storyline here is that the Marina has more than doubled its profitability this year. Okay? Now, you know, I'm guessing then the results after you said that you do that forensic audit all over again, I'm guessing these results will bear it out. Okay? I'll go slow. In fairness, I deal with this stuff every day. But, you know, and I know municipal accounting is complex, but this is a retail marina. So there's revenue, there's expensive, and the difference is the profit. Okay? Let me start by saying, while I know controlling costs is very crucial, without revenue, you have no top-line number. Okay? So let's look in the middle of the page. And Walter's already said this. We have a decrease in revenue. Okay? He said $127,000. I believe that was just in fuel. But a decrease in revenue from 2019 to 2018 of $115,000. Okay? Now, that's after getting $50,000 worth of advice from a couple of guys that have never run a marina. But that's where we are right now. So basically, instead of having what should have been a great year, okay, with these forensic examiners giving us all this advice, we're down $115,000 in revenue. That's not good for any business, okay? Well, let's examine it real quick. Some of the gains. There are some gains in there, don't get me wrong, but the big ones, and Walter's already pointed out, we've got a decrease in $202,000 in marina fuel, ship store sales revenues are down, and even the revenue from the grunt hunt was cut in a third, okay? That's alarming from a business standpoint. Bottom line is we only have so many boat slips we can sell, okay? Well, we can bring in as much gas and as much product as we can bring in and sell it, okay? So there's a finite number. So no dispute, okay? We're minus $115,000 in revenue, okay? Well, let's look at the expenses carefully, okay? Middle of page 78, they start. Salary and wages, okay? We're looking at all the hard costs, salary and wages, OT, Social Security, all up, okay? And we're also proposing, and I don't know, it was supposed to be on the agenda today, but there was proposing the adding of a $47,000 bookkeeper position, even with the salaries up. Frankly, in my opinion, with revenues down, we don't need a bookkeeper. We need a salesperson to go get those revenues. But all the hard costs are up. That's undisputed. Scroll down to 3,100 professional services. This looks promising. We reduced this cost by over $51,000. Now, what's that cost? Okay.
That's the forensic examination.
Okay, so we're sitting here crediting a $51,000 swing because we forced an investigation on the marina and then made the marina numbers suffer for it. That's silly. That's not quite the apples to apples comparison, Mr. Pierce, that we're looking for. A forensic examination was ordered by the city manager. Should have come out of your budget or the city manager's budget. So frankly, that's hooey to even put that on there. Okay, well, let's scroll down. General expenses, phone, postage, blah, 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 they remain the same, which is expected because we haven't changed the business model. Let's scroll down to the next big decrease, okay? It's right in the middle, go to page 79. Okay, as you scroll down, you're going to look promotions and public relations, okay? It's a nearly $15,000 decrease. Now, is that a good thing? Well, definitely doing that can, getting away from that contributed to our $115,000 decrease in revenue, okay? But it's a business, guys. We need to advertise and we need to promote it, okay? But you also noticed earlier the grunt hunt was down about $14,000 in revenue as well. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know. But I kept scrolling because I needed to see where all these major changes were. We were down in revenue. How could our profit margin be up? And then we get to the big ones, okay? You get to 5270, which is a fuel purchase of fuel, and 5271, which is the store purchase store, okay? They're down $204 and $24,000 respectively, okay? Folks, this is where knowledge of retail accounting is helpful, but frankly, logic is just as useful. What this means is we purchased $200,000 less in gas and $24,000 less in store inventory. So the question again, is that a positive thing, okay? Fact, retail operations need inventory to be successful, okay? But this is a variable cost, okay? So reduction in this expense is hardly any reason for jubilation. But I pose the question, if you were at a bar and on September 30th you had 20 cases of Bud Light sitting in the corner, what do? Do you dump it out? Or do you give it away for free? No, you turn around and you sell it on October 1st, even though it's a different fiscal year. Same thing applies here. Did we get rid of the gas inventory and the store inventory from 2018 and restock on October 1st? No, we're using that product to sell in 2019. Okay, of course not. I mean, did Marsicano steal it on his way out the door? Well, we did a fraud examination, and surely he didn't do that. So the logical solution is, what did we do with the excess fiscal year 2018 inventory? Logically, we sold it in 2019. And in return, with revenues down dramatically, we didn't have to buy as much inventory to restock because we weren't selling, and the $115,000 in decreases bears that out, okay? It's all in the numbers. It's pretty simple, okay? So I think we need to hold off having a ticker tape parade on the Marina success because we lowered our inventory purchases by $225,000. Because frankly, this is an insane comparison. And Walt, no disrespect, but no credible financial person would make this be their golden sword here, okay? No retail person has ever said we're better off because sales are down. I've never even heard that, okay? Because we didn't have to replenish our inventory at the same rate. Flat out crazy, and a notion a seasoned professional shouldn't be selling to his bosses, okay? I don't want to get back into the encumbrance thing, but I think that's a little silly that we're saying, okay, oh, well, we're just going to push it to next year because it just hasn't been paid yet. It's a bill that's from this year, and that's why it's on the encumbrance line, or else it wouldn't have been there in the first place. Okay, I keep going on. But the last report our citizenry got about the Marina, okay, was that the Marina lost $550,000. Walt, I'm going to ask you again, was that an accurate statement?
Where are you getting that from?
I'm sorry, from the newspaper from last year from the Marina audit, $550,000.
I guess that's coming from some part of the presentation that was done from the forensic audit.
Walter, did the Marina lose $550,000 in 2018? Because I don't see that on your spreadsheet.
No, what I'm showing is that there was a net revenue of over expenses in 18 of 105, 122.
Right, but that's not what the paper reported. The newspaper reported that we lost $550,000.
I'm sorry, sir, I don't know what the newspaper reported.
Really? You want me to show you Kurt's press release that the newspapers
I'm just giving
I showed it to you the last thing, but that's okay. You can sit back for a second.
Facts right here.
You're not giving me facts. We did a $50,000 fraud, financial, whatever investigation that has resulted in a loss, an uncontested loss of real money, not $550,000 monopoly money, of real money of $115,000 in real revenue, and it's growing, okay? Mr. Ayers, get your pencil ready. That's $115,000 of real revenue losses after we did a $50,000 investigation. And more terrifying, because I got the numbers from the Marina, the first quarter of fiscal year 2020, the revenue numbers are getting worse, okay? This stuff's got to end. I mean, it's just got to end. I mean, at some point, our citizenry thinks that our Marina was stolen. I mean, I have people saying this to me still to this day because people are putting it in their heads that we lost $550,000. Walter, Maybe get a retraction. Maybe we do something, because you can't prove to me that we lost 550 grand, that's for sure. I've looked at your numbers.
Sir, I'm only giving you the facts right
Okay,
here.
so what, excuse me, Commissioner, I'm speaking. I would like a retraction from this city based on, if you want me to show you Kurt's press release that all the papers ran with, I will show it to you. But you're the finance director, and this reflects badly on you. I would like a retraction to the Beach Beacon that this marina did not lose $550,000. Can you do that for me?
Sir, I don't know what you're talking, I'm just giving you the facts right here that you requested.
You don't know what I'm talking about? The marina audit that posted a $550,000 loss. You're telling me, you're sitting here looking at me right now telling me you don't know what I'm talking about.
Sir, if that figure came up from the forensic audit, that's what came up from that.
Okay, are you backing that? Are you backing that claim? You're the finance guy.
I am giving you the facts that I have
So what
today.
is the fact, Walter? Did the marina lose $550,000 or not?
The excess of revenues over expenses for 2019 is $105,122.
Thank you, Walter. So what is my answer to my question? I asked you a very simple yes or no question. Did the marina in fiscal year 2018 lose $550,000?
No, sir.
Thank you. That's all I need.
Point of order. I do not think that we're discussing the exact same thing here.
We are discussing the
talking-
exact same thing. It's the
No, we're
comparison
not,
between
sir.
2018 and 2019, Commissioner. That's what we're discussing. I know you don't like it. It makes you uncomfortable because
No,
you're
it doesn't
telling
make
people
me
the other
uncomfortable
thing.
at all. As a matter of fact, Commissioner, I'd love to have that full thing that you've been reading from the last 15 minutes,
You
because
would?
maybe it would understand, because you read it so fast, I really
I didn't think I read it that
understand
fast, but I
perhaps you'll share
actually
it with
pointed
us.
stuff out
Vice
for you,
Mayor,
Commissioner.
Vice Mayor and Commissioners, there were some things mentioned here in the revenue expenditures, like just an opportunity to address them, because I
Well,
couldn't.
you will in a minute,
Okay.
okay?
All right.
First off, Madam Vice Mayor, I think one of the commissioners has the floor. You have to pick which one, and then we can move on with the presentation. But we're going back and forth here. I'd rather move us forward than, than
Vice
sit
Mayor,
here
I've
and
said what
debate
I've
an
had to
issue.
say, so Commissioner Weinstein can have the floor.
Does anybody agree, or does the Vice Mayor agree, that the point of order is proper in this case, because we're really not discussing a loss of the marina funds, we're discussing the reports that are doing a comparison, and I'm not following Commissioner Andrews, so I guess I either just don't understand the facts. Why don't you say something, Vice Mayor? Maybe you can, elaborate on this a
Is
little
there
bit,
any
because
way-
I'm at a loss.
Is there any way, Doug, that Debbie can get a copy of that?
I will
letter?
be happy to provide Commissioner Weinstein with whatever she needs. My only point, and the whole point of the whole circle around to where we came back to, was our citizenry believes that our marina in 2018 lost $550,000. That is a flat-out lie. A flat-out lie that came from a report from a forensic fraud, whatever investigation. But it's a flat-out lie, and that's what was reported to the public, and it has never been corrected. Walter Pierce has just stood here in front of you and told you that the marina made $105,000, okay, in 2018. Not lost $550,000. He also alluded to the fact that the audit was taken out of the profit margin for that year as well. Okay? They took the audit. No, they made them pay for their own investigation. I mean, that's just bonkers. I mean, that's crazy. You don't do that. So my point, and what I've asked the finance director to, because it shines very, very poorly on the finance department, if our marina lost $550,000, that he goes to Mr. Ayers and makes a retraction and lets our public know that that's not accurate. That's all I'm asking. And that's easy, Commissioner. You can read my sentence all day long, but I'll tell you what, that's a simple fact that we did not lose that money, and that's what was reported, and that's the questions I face every day. Hey, did we really lose $500,000? Did Marsicano steal all this stuff? That's incorrect.
Vice Mayor and Commissioners, I'd just like to make one comment on this, and then I've got some comments to make on the revenue and some of these expenditures. I think what's being referred to is some of the discounts that were levied and some improper. And when that was calculated by the forensic auditors, that's the figure that they came up with based on those discounts. I think that's what Commissioner Andrews is referring to. What I'm referring to right here is the facts of revenue and expenditures. Now, one thing on the revenues, and the Commissioner went through some revenue and expenditures, and I'd like an opportunity to indicate some of these. I was impressed by, in the revenue side, which did help, is dry storage fees, transient rentals. Those each went up $14,000. The other one went up $8,200. And then Marina Marina slip rentals went up almost $20,000. That indicates we had a procedure that we implemented at the beginning of that year that homed in on some people that weren't paying, and also making sure that people pay on time. We did implement that the beginning of 2019. That's a plus. The Commissioner mentioned an increase in salaries and wages. The previous director left, and the payout for that previous director was $14,521,000. And when that director was replaced, we upgraded the existing staff by 10% to compensate for that vacancy. So that's the difference on the salaries and benefits that do show an increase. The Marina audit, $50,000. It can't be charged to anything else. It's an independent fund and an enterprise fund. Anything regarding that fund, whatever, regardless of the charge, if it applies to that fund, it has to be charged there. So that's the answer to that. Again, as far as the purchases of fuel and sales, as the analysis shows that I did on the separate piece of paper I gave you, the sales for fuel from 18 and 19 did go down by 127,000, but the corresponding fuel purchases went down even more. Actually, when you take the fuel sales for 2019 and compare it to purchases, there's a savings of $450,000. This is a successful year. It's going to end at $256,353, and it's a tremendous growth, or a significant growth from the previous year of $105,000.
The fact that you are using purchases, a variable cost of purchases. Walter, did we utilize the purchases that we made in 2018 and 2019?
Sir, you're talking about.
I'm asking you a simple question.
I'm trying to answer you, sir.
No, you're not. It's a simple yes or no question. You don't have to give me any kind of background on it.
Sir, you're not understanding encumbrances, and you
wait a minute.
work
Encumbrances are a debt.
You
We're
should
not
understand
talking about that.
encumbrances,
I didn't ask you about encumbrances.
Well, you don't understand encumbrances.
Okay, I don't understand it. It's a debt.
Encumbrances is not debt, is expended when it's expended. It's a purchase order that will roll over into the new year. It's not an expense. It will not show up in the CAFR.
That's awesome, because now next year we start with $174,000 in the hole, according to what you're just saying, for something that we purchased in 2019 so that you can make your numbers look better. I think it's great, Walt. I mean, you know what? I mean, accounting's great. You can do whatever you want to do. And the fact that you can't charge something to another department because you asked for the audit, you can't charge that to your account?
I didn't ask for the audit. The city manager at the time.
Okay, but you're telling me that can't be charged to any other account?
No,
Well,
it's a Marina
Come
expense.
on, Walt. Come on,
Okay.
Walter, come on.
Commissioner, okay. Commissioner, just to respond to some of your questions, encumbrances, when you have a purchase order, and I know you're looking at year to year, but when you have a purchase order, we have a brand new budget year, there's certain things that you know you're going to be buying. So they go out and the price of fuel fluctuates. Anybody will tell you that at the Marina. You know, they have to call up and they get 3 quotes for fuel.
Bob, I understand that part. Well, I just want to point something out. You don't have to go through the whole thing.
I'm telling you what the encumbrance is so you have a better understanding.
The encumbrance is something that there is a purchase order for that encumbrance, okay? And that occurred in 2019. Why isn't it being billed in 2019?
The reason is that's where the budget that it came out of.
Correct.
Now, depending on how much fuel they use, and we're using fuel here, you know, we do purchase orders for anything. We just did one for, I don't know, a $4,000 item, and we might only spend $3,000 of it. So there's $1,000 that's not expended that year. So it goes back into the general fund.
The perfect example, city manager, is the generator that we purchased, that the board approved. That PO is $340,000, and chances are that's the PO, that's the encumbrance. But chances are, we will not spend that. We're planning on spending probably just $250,000 of that.
Did we purchase it yet,
Then
Walt?
that difference
No.
goes
Yes.
away.
Right, okay.
It hasn't been delivered, so we haven't spent the money.
But the point is, this is a very specific number. You're saying $340,000. That's what you had the approval to spend. You're talking about $159,713. This isn't. You're saying that's a placeholder? You're saying that doesn't even exist? That we didn't spend that money, or we just didn't pay it?
It's an amount not to exceed, and chances are it
13
won't
cents?
exceed that.
Walter, you got it. I mean, come on. Did you look at the number? Did you look at the number?
Sir, the encumbrances do not show up in the CAFR. It's revenue and expenditures.
Because you're pushing it 1 year out. I'm just saying the money's already been spent. You've already taken out of the available budget. You already took it out of there. Look at your available budget.
Commissioner, you can't carry it over.
Well, I'll leave it alone. You know what? I just hate the runaround. That's completely ridiculous. Bob, this money's been spent. We know it's been spent because of the dollar figure that we're talking about. So we're going to push it a year and make our numbers look good in 2019 when the actual numbers shouldn't be. We shouldn't be having this ticker tape parade party because our revenues are down $127,000. That's my point. That's ridiculous. We should be having people going to look for that revenue. Okay? Because you can bring up all the boat slips that you want, but we only have a certain amount of boat slips. We only have a certain amount of transient spots that we can fill. We only have a certain amount of dry storage. We need to get our boaters back to buy gas. That's what we need, Walt. And for you to sit here and say that we had a better year this year than we had last year and we're off $127,000 in revenue, that is ludicrous. And I can't believe that you're making that point because the purchases are down.
I think there's a lot of improvement to do, but I think that showing a profit like this is a good thing.
Well, then at least speak the truth. And like I said, I'd really like you to look into getting a retraction for that because I think it makes the city look bad. And I think, you know what? You could do a really good service here, okay? And let our citizens know exactly what's going on. That would make me happy, Walt. You know, make me happy. Okay? Thanks.
May I make a few comments?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would just like to make a few comments. First of all, I think that Walter did not, I don't know who reported it, but newspapers get all kind of things, okay? Social media gets all kind of things. I think that the figure came from Carr Ingram, okay? It did not come from our staff that said what our loss was or what our gain was. It was strictly the numbers the city gives to Carr Ingram. They didn't make up the numbers, okay? So
I think it did have something to do with the discounts and not having the discounts in the fee schedule, and that's the figure that they came up because of those discounts that were given.
Right, okay, and I understand that. But I guess what I'd really
that
like to say
information
is,
does not show up in revenue and expenditures and in the CAFR.
I think it also came up, if I may, the lost opportunity, because there was a part that I've read in that study, and I think that's where the numbers got inflated, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, let me read something for you guys. Okay,
I'm not through. I wasn't finished, okay? I didn't jump in fast enough, though, Commissioner Andrews, sorry. But let me just get through it. I just really wanted to say that based on the reports that I got, that all of y'all got right here, I think that the Marina staff, the finance department, Public Works, whoever, all the other staffers who worked on this report and worked with Walt to show a bottom line of better than what we've had is a good thing. There may be many reasons why there's certain fluctuation in positivity or negativity of numbers, and that from the previous year, but the main objective is that the bottom line was positive. And it was accomplished by all the people on the staff. And I really think that's a good step forward, a good move forward. So thank you, Walt.
Okay, so let me just read when you're saying you don't know where it came from, Commissioner. You said you didn't know where the number came from. It did come from the audit, but it also, the reason the newspapers wrote whatever they wanted to write, in your words, is because our chief officer or information officer here, wrote a press release. Following a detailed examination of finances, inventory, and work processes at the Madeira Beach Marina, auditors from Cars, Riggs, and Ingram provided their report to the Madeira Beach Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. The report shows estimated marina losses totaling more than $550,000, period. It doesn't say, this is so this is from our in-house person. This is what was given to the newspapers so that they could write this. Walter has just said we did not lose $550,000. So this report that we internally put out to the newspapers is incorrect, and I want that changed. That's what this whole thing's been about. I know you don't like the way I run around, but that's what the whole thing's been about. We don't need this with this kind of publicity. We don't.
That's right.
Okay? We made, in the year that they're talking about, we made $550,000. Look at this. Here it is. Front page of the Tampa Bay Times. Madeira Beach Marina audit finds losses over $500,000. That's the headline. It doesn't say lost revenue opportunities or anything like that. It basically says we lost money, and that's not true. I would like to go and try to get a retraction. I think our citizens deserve to know the truth. That's all. That's all.
I'll look into that.
Thank you, Bob.
Madam Vice Mayor, can we take 5 minutes?
me. We're calling the meeting back together again. The time is 4:28. I need to find out, did anyone have any comment to make on the last judgment that we talked about? Please, come on, John.
John Hendricks, 569 Normandy Road. It absolutely was put out there that the Marina lost $500,000. As I go around town, I've had numerous people bring that up, and the fact that the city had lost $500,000. One night, right in these chambers, I questioned Kurt Presser on why it was written up that way in the press release, because I heard the gentleman say that was a part of the forensic audit that it was $500,000 in potential revenue that was lost by discounting the fuel to the boats, the commercial fishermen, the residents, boat US members and high volume purchasers. So it was $500,000 in lost revenue, but that is not how it was given to the press. I even have an email right here that I received over the weekend from a resident talking about Dave Marsicano was in charge of the Marina when it lost $500,000. Dave Marsicano quit. Need I say more? Not only does this city need to apologize to people on the reporting of this as a loss of $500,000, I think Mr. Marsicano needs an apology too, because this followed him and it wasn't right, and we do need to correct it because the Marina was making a lot more money. We did this. We got rid of the discounts. All the commercial boats went away. There are boat slips that are empty. That's something else that was added as lost revenue. Because we had a boat slip empty, it was counted as lost revenue. You can't do that. So all this needs to be corrected. We need to correct the record. It's just not right. Thank you.
I'm looking at Helen Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue in the beautiful city of Madeira Beach. I'm looking at the very same documents that you all have in your packets, where I see all the same numbers that Commissioner Andrew talked about. And I just want to make the point that in 2018, when Dave Marsicano was heading up our marina, we sold $550,000 plus of commercial diesel fuel with discounts, $550,000. The very next year, after, in its wisdom, this commission decided to do away with discounts, we sold $350,000 worth. That lowered our revenue by $200,000 in that one transaction, that one decision alone. So I'm very surprised to hear that all of a sudden our marina is now more profitable in 2019 than it was in 2018. And I don't understand why in 2018, and here I am, I'm looking at the same packet you all have, the same thing that's on our website. Page 85 of 118 is the 2018 budget, or let's see what it's called, year-to-date budget report for the marina. There's no encumbrances whatsoever, none. 2019, all of a sudden, we have 174,000 plus of encumbrances, which I'm no expert, but I've always thought that to be future debt, or debt that's inevitable coming up. If you apply that 174,000 to the revenues that were, or for the budget or the expense report, the profit and loss for 2019, that brings that that $256,000 profit that we keep hearing about down to $82,000, which means 2019 had less profit than 2018. That's the way I look at it. Otherwise, now we're going to start 2020, $174,000 in the hole, and we're going to get really bad reports next year under our new leadership there. So I'll be curious to see how that is shuffled around. I do think Dave Marsicano deserves an apology from this city, from the press report that our former city manager, Jonathan Evans, directed Kurt Presser to put out. I think Presser should be reprimanded for putting out such a thing. And I do think a retraction should be sought. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who needs to speak tonight on this? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that part of the agenda. The next item we have listed here is the amendment to Code of Ordinance, Section 2-386, the modification of orders by special magistrate.
Madam Vice Chair and Commissioners, good afternoon. This item is intended to help facilitate a cleaner lien collection process. And as you may recall, we've been talking about the special magistrate and the magistrate's responsibilities over the course of this year. You've got a couple, actually 3 more items coming to you at the regular meeting in February dealing with the magistrate. You've already had hearings on them. They're coming back to you to finish up second hearing. And you've put a lot of time into getting input from the Planning Commission and the community on this. And as we went through the process, and we were also looking at better ways to enforce the liens and other code enforcement issues, it was determined that we have a bit of a disconnect with enforcing the liens, because right now the item as a code violation will go to the magistrate, and then the magistrate works with the property owner, talks about what their options are to bring the property into compliance, gives them time to do that, and then only after they have failed to do so in the agreed upon time does the magistrate levy a fine on the property. And then if still they haven't corrected the problem, the fine then begins to grow. And eventually it becomes a problem, because sometimes not only managing the financial end of that, but sometimes we have to manage the piece of property, keep it clean, mowing and fencing, and there are other costs associated with that. In addition, an unregulated piece of property or a code violation, as you know, has direct impact on the value of the property and the quality of life of those living around it. And so it really is incumbent upon the local government to enforce its codes, and when they are violated, enforce the liens or any kind of fines that are levied. That's very important. The process that we have right now is a little bit contradictory. On one hand, it states that any decision made can be appealed to the special magistrate, but then it also says that the special magistrate appeals to fines and liens can come back to the city commission as a board of commissioners. The problem with that is that all of these items have gone through a careful consideration in a judicial setting, a quasi-judicial setting. And when they get referred back to you, they're coming back to a political body. And because we have elections regularly, it's a very political situation all the time. And the composition of the commission changes regularly, which means that one person may get a break when another person doesn't. It's still very difficult for the Board of Commissioners to implement policy evenly over the course of the years because of the changes in composition. And also because the Commission does not have the advantage of having sat through all the testimony and been part of the attempted resolution to the problem, and the fact that if it's at the point of liens, that's because it's been ignored. there's always an option to go back. There should be some kind of appeal, but what we're suggesting is that if someone wants to appeal the level of the fine or the level of the lien, that they go back to the special magistrate and explain what their circumstances are and what may have prevented them from responding to the community, and deal with it that way. And then the code automatically allows, if they are unsatisfied with the special magistrate, that they have recourse of going on to court. So what we're proposing is that the appeal process on a lien or a fine establishment be referred back to the special magistrate to continue working on it, just as if you had any action taken against you or any motion placed upon you and you wanted to go renegotiate with the judge, you would be able to do that. And then after that, if they want to appeal, they take it to court. The reason we're bringing it now is this particular portion of the code does not have to go back to the Planning Commission for review. And if you're interested in moving forward to this, we can bring it back to you with the other items that dealing with the magistrate and get that all cleaned up at once.
And I believe we were scheduled to have it on the meeting agenda for the February meeting. So I know
That's great.
kind of touched on this before, so it's kind of a little bit of a repeat when we're dealing with the lien situation. But I really think it's the best way to handle it, since it's already in the judicial side, to keep it there. So unless there's any objections, we'll keep it on the agenda.
Keep it on the agenda.
Good for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Did you? No, I'm sorry.
Was there any public comment on that? Okay, thank you. I'll close public comment. The next item on the agenda is update on Proportionate-Share development regulations and fees.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Hodges, Commissioners. Jerry Murphy, University of Florida for the record. In your packet, you have a memorandum, a couple of task orders that have been completed and executed that are referenced in the memorandum, and a draft memorandum or a draft task order for the mobility fees that we proposed when I was here earlier this month. Commissioner Douthert had some questions about the timing and the cost, and so those are included in that third task order that's in draft form. We're looking for direction to the February 11th meeting for a decision, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, so at this time, all it's going to do is just go into referendum for the next meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you can't act on anything today, so you'll direct it to the 11th. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I just,
thank you.
in an effort to try to keep the meeting agenda a little bit more compact on our regular meeting, wanted to make sure that Jerry was here, so if you had any detailed questions, he could answer them. Obviously, we have two commissioners that are not here, the mayor and a commissioner, so they can pull it off the consent agenda or what have you to discuss.
And then we provided to you, and I think it's also in your packet, an initial report on the progress that we've made so far, and so if you have questions about that as well.
Doug, did you have anything for Debbie? Did you have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
One more thing on the agenda. And this is on construction administration services for Crystal Island roadway and stormwater improvement projects. Okay, Janie.
Yes, so the purpose of this is to request permission for the approval of the construction administration and inspection services by Dool and Associates for Crystal Island project. The amount is $198,700. The services will include project oversight, coordination, and coordination with the construction and budget and schedule, and also to make sure that the plans and design specifications are followed correctly. The funding will come from the stormwater drainage account. So if you have any other questions, I'm here.
We can't approve anything today anyway, right? So, I mean, we also didn't approve the project yet, so it's kind of
Right.
senseless to even discuss this until we do that, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's just
Thursday
push
at
it.
2, we'll have the project. If you want me to put it on the same agenda,
Fair
we
enough.
can do that.
Mhm.
That'll work? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I had just one other issue, if I may, or did you want to ask public comment on that issue, or?
Does someone need to make public comment on that? Oh, please.
Maybe I just need clarification, but Helen Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue, here in the beautiful city of Madeira Beach. So of the two bids we got, the one for 12,600 or 12,600,000 and something, was that Dual and Associates?
That's who's handling it. Well, I'm
Yeah?
No.
actually, they're not
Oh,
really.
that wasn't, okay.
It's the contract.
Okay, because I was rehiring the
I forget the name of the firm, so yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I saw that name all over a lot of things, and I just wanted to make sure.
They did the design for the project, and so that's why they're, generally, my exposure has been that whoever does the design work, usually they're the best person to watch over the project too. But again, it comes before the commission, and I think that's like $100,000 number. I don't have the contract here.
It's almost 200.
198,700.
Okay, and that's what we'll discuss Thursday.
So you might as well throw that on top of the bid if you're even thinking about it, right?
Well, no, it's included within the construction costs, I believe, correct? Or am I wrong?
No, it's a
Separate.
Okay, separate.
So another 200,000 on top of the 12,600,000, whatever. All right, thank you.
Is there any other public comments? All right, I'll
So,
close
Madam Mayor,
that part.
before you adjourn, there's just one other issue that came up. Missy Hahn from the Chamber of Commerce was here, and this is my first time during the election cycle of being here, and I've instituted a hands-off policy, nobody to get involved in politics, and we're not going to do political events or anything of the sort. But it was my understanding that they do a forum for candidates, and she asked that I bring this up. It wouldn't involve any of the staff, and they just would like to use this facility. I know we've talked about it before about, if somebody wants to utilize the facility, they could rent it, but I don't think that's what they're looking for. I think they're looking for coming in, and as they've done in the past, is my understanding, and they've been able to utilize the facility. So I'm mentioning it to you all because I don't have that experience here in Madeira Beach.
Well, I know the Chambers normally does a debate. Maybe that's what she was talking about?
Yes.
That's it? Okay.
Or
She
I don't know if
didn't
it's a
say
debate or
when
a forum.
Forum, and yeah, and it's a public service, it is public service for our citizens to be able to participate in this. So you're asking, has a fee ever been charged, or has the
Correct.
event ever?
Well, a
okay.
fee
I don't think it
or
ever has
whatever.
been.
No fees have ever been
No.
charged when I was, yeah,
'Cause
we
it's
don't even,
public
it's a
service.
public service, and frankly, it's a great idea. It's, our candidates get a bunch of exposure. We've normally televised them in the past. There's normally the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber does one, the Treasure Island Madeira Beach Chamber does one, and then the League of Women's Voters does a third one. So last year there were 3 that I was involved in. So, I think, like I said, it's a really good opportunity for candidates that, haven't had a chance to, get to every door in town to be able to express their views. And I mean, it's calm. It's not as Commissioner Weinstein said, it's a forum. It's not a debate. It's just, we're talking about issues, and it runs pretty smoothly.
Okay, so I'll continue on then with that vein and work on coordinating it with them. Okay.
Was there anything? Excuse me, Bob, did you have your hand up for something? Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. Okay. All right. City Manager, did you have any response? Okay. Claire, did
Thank
you
you.
have any response for us? I'm sorry. No? March 17th.
Oh, election here.
Okay. And Ralph, did you have anything for us tonight? Okay, thank you. Okay. 4:48, and we'll close the meeting.